New Heroes banner. What's it going to be, fellas? Do you think it's going to be more Engage, or is it going to be something else? That sure as heck sounds to me like it is something else. Oh, definitely, without a doubt. Hello there, Gilliam. You are Gilliam, right? Yes, hello there, Gilliam. I knew I'd recognize a Gilliam when I saw one. Drawn by DieXT. Thank you very much, DieXT. So, yeah, Sacred Stones. Who would have thunk? I did not predict this, frankly. But, maybe you did. There are some very good at predicting banners people out there. I don't know. I don't read their posts. Or maybe I do and I just forgot. In any case, Gilliam is a Lance armor. And, well, let's take a look at his kit, shall we? Armed with a Frelian Lance, accelerates special trigger, then count -1 at start of turn, grants neutralizes effect against flying bonuses to flying allies within 2 spaces of unit for 1 turn. If foe initiates combat or foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75% at start of combat, grants attack +6 to unit, inflicts attack -6 on foe, inflicts penalty on foe's attack and defense equal to 20% of unit's defense at start of combat, and reduces damage from the foe's first attack by 40% during combat. Okay, so, well, to begin with, this apparently they've decided is your new armor for flyable teams. Well, why would I want to run an armor in a flyable, you may ask? Because flyers can't use save skills. Why are you asking such silly questions, hypothetical viewer? Yeah, you run this as the save for your flyable, and now flyers no longer have to face their one big weakness, which is the fact that bows exist. And obviously you can run IO's Shield as an A slot or an S slot, but being able to free up those skill slots for other skills that actually give stats is a very big deal. This is especially an important case for units that are trying to be tanky flyers, because unless you're someone like Spring Maria who already has IOTs just built into the weapon, tanky flyers really struggle with the fact that units which are effective against them are not just like a tech pick that you bring in case you're about to run into one, like armor effective weapons. They are just bows. They are just everywhere. So yeah, having good support for that is very, very handy. Aside from that, pretty standard stat effect, but it's cool that you're getting it as 20% of unit's defense. Kind of reminds me of, for instance, like Aska Duo, Aska the flat damage reduction based on a percentage of defense. This, I'd argue, isn't quite as strong necessarily because, I mean, in some cases it's stronger, right? If you're going up against something like lethality, for instance, it's roughly equivalent. I guess actually, because lethality doesn't pierce flat damage reduction either, but reducing the foe's attack and defense is effectively the same as reducing their damage output. The difference is just that this applies before damage reduction, flat applies after damage reduction, which is why flat is so ridiculously strong in combat with it, right? And I guess also the other thing is because you're reducing their defense, you're also dealing more damage, so that's handy as well. But yeah, we've seen how strong this kind of effect can be, and even though, again, it's not flat damage reduction, it is still going to be a pretty considerable chunk of attack reduction. Like, you can easily reach 50, 60 defense, so upwards of -10 attack from foe, and if you can go higher, like 70, 80, then, well, let's just say they're not getting much attack through you anytime soon. It's also one of the really handy things against armor effectiveness, by the way, reducing attack, actually, I should point out. So bear that in mind. Especially his Bonfire, so we can expect him to be a high defense unit. Who would have guessed, given his weapon scaling off his defense? In the A slot, Sturdy Stance free. C slot is near save free, so this is maybe a modern Deju, because yeah, this is actually very similar to Deju's kit, but in the B slot, something new, Vengeful, Fighter 4. If unit's HP is greater than or equals 25% and foe initiates combat, inflicts attack -4 on foe during combat, unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack, foe cannot make a follow-up attack, and grants special cooldown charge +1 to unit per attack during combat. Okay, so that's how they've decided to buff Vengeful. For those of you who haven't used Vengeful in a while, Vengeful Fighter 3 was honestly the worst of all the original set of fighter skills in my personal opinion. Well, it makes a guaranteed follow-up attack, that was pretty handy, but we got better guaranteed follow-up attack fighter skills later. But the real issue Vengeful had was that it didn't really do much defensively, and even offensively, it only used to give you special cooldown acceleration for your attacks in combat, if I recall correctly. So you'd need that guaranteed follow-up attack to really get anything from it, because otherwise it's just not doing much for you, is it? Here now, this Vengeful has A, lowest HP threshold, very handy. B, attack -4, nice little stat bonus. C, it's full follow-up control now, guaranteed follow-up and follow-up prevention. And 4, that special cooldown charge is applied to all attacks, breath style, rather than just your attacks. Put it all together, and this is a much better skill than Vengeful 3. This is a skill that I think is actually somewhat usable in the current meta. Obviously, as far as defenses go, it's still not going to quite cut it compared to the ridiculous damage reduction of Hardy Fighter, but this does give you just a great amount of control, handy little stat bonus, and the potential to throw out some very big specials without having to rely on a fighter skill that I still love actually, but Special Fighter, which up until now I considered basically the best fighter skill for more general use if you weren't running Hardy, right? So yeah, very cool unit here. Interesting niche they've put him in with the flyer support, and a great set of inheritable skills. I'm already very happy every time I pull a Deju. This being a Deju in terms of foil, but with Vengeful 4 as well, is just cherry on top. Let's keep going, shall we? Who else from the Sacred Stones are we going to see on this banner? Yeah, tanking that armor effective axe with no issue whatsoever. Next up is, who are you? Hang on a second. Yeah, Syrene, that's it. Yeah, Pegasus Knight, another green-haired Pegasus Knight. To make a little bit of a change from the blue-haired Pegasus Knights, we've got to mix it up every now and again, right? As you might have expected from being a Pegasus Knight, she is a red sword flyer. Her weapon is the Threlian Blade. Accelerates special trigger, cooldown count -1. If foe initiates combat or if foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75% at start of combat, grants attack speed defense res +5. Inflicts penalty on foe's attack speed defense equal to 15% of unit speed at start of combat. Neutralizes effects that prevent units' follow-up attacks, and reduces damage from foe's first attack by 40% during combat. Okay, so very much a pretty pure stat stick weapon here, but a decently effective stat stick nonetheless. Slaying is like the best extra effect on any of these weapons, most of the time, of course. The condition, if foe initiates combat, is a little odd because, again, flyers typically want to be a bit more careful about enemy phasing, but it's workable. But then also the foe's HP being greater than or equal to 75% at start of combat, that is normally going to be active. Or if it's not active, usually the foe is at low enough HP that you don't really care too much, right? You're hoping that you'll just have the stats to win anyway, regardless of your weapon being active or not. And yeah, the stat effect, +5 to all stats, is normal, but then penalty on foe's attack speed def equal to 15% of units' speed. So if you're at 50 speed, pretty easy, that's 7.5. So that's pretty decent, but again, you can go much higher than 50 speed, right? Obviously 100 speed is going to be 15, but 100 speed is maybe a little bit out of reach, but you get the idea, right? Notably, it is unit speed at start of combat, not during combat, so this cares about visible speed, actually. So maybe not quite as good as I considered it, but still just pretty good overall stats. Nothing too special, though. A little bit of damage reduction on there because everyone has a little bit of damage reduction these days as well. Apparently that's the new trend. The A slot is a skill we've kind of seen before, but it is a new version of it. Speed, Res, Catch 4. Catch skills are frankly decent, they're pretty good. Speed, Res is an interesting combination of stats. I assume she is going to be pretty fast and have a pretty high res stat because that's the Pegasus Knight stat line. That being said, you do gotta question what exactly she's using that res for in combat. Maybe for a res-based special, but she does have Moonbow as her special, so maybe not. She also brings with it the return of Pegasus Flight 4. Which is a great skill. Again, Pegasus Flight 4, I said this the first time it came up, has a kind of very limited pool of units who actually want to use it, because, again, it relies on out-rezzing your opponent, right? But there's a lot of units out there who either already have high res and you want to fight, or have low res, but you didn't really care about the extra stats in that combat because you were going to win it anyway, right? But again, the 4 version fixed that a fair bit by now just making it pretty useful against opponents, even if they've got high res, if they're slow because of the speed and res condition preventing foes' follow-up attack, and just the fact that it afflicts attack defense -4 even in the worst case scenario, right? It's a much better B slot than it used to be at level 3. Pretty handy just general unit there, decent stat stick, but I don't think she's going to be making much impact overall on the metagame. Keep moving forwards, let's see. I assume her animations aren't going to be too special. I do like her voice acting, but this is, I'm assuming, our 4-star unit here.
My Pegasus
Vanessa.
can scout the enemy in no time.
A blue Lance flyer, another Pegasus Knight, and wow, hello there, 4-star kit. Armed with the up front Lance, an inheritable Lance, because of course. Start of combat, if foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75%, grants attack speed +5 to unit and neutralizes unit's penalties to attack and speed during combat. It's decent. It's 5 stats and a fun extra effect. That's what most inheritable weapons are these days, not gonna lie. But being completely honest, are you actually using this weapon when the Arcane Lance exists, right? I mean, I guess if you don't have enough copies of the Arcane Lance to follow to everyone, then you're considering inheritable lances as a backup option, but still, it's like, are you actually running this? Like, it works. Special is Luna. The A slot, attack, res, catch, 3. Okay, now that is good to have around. Attack, res, catch, 4. I don't know who that's on, but I'm pretty sure attack, res, catch, 3 is not in an easy place to get currently. So, this addition to the 4-star pool is going to just make skill inheritance that little bit easier. And the C slot, speed res 03. Does speed res 04 exist yet? I can't remember which exact skill combinations they've added before. But again, the 04 skills are very good. The 03 skills are decent, but again, speed res isn't really the combination of stats you particularly want. Speed is handy, of course, but res is kind of only really used in a couple of opponents, right? You're only getting res if you're fighting against dragons or tomes and staffs. So generally, speed res is kind of like the weakest combination of two stats. Well, in any case, it is what it is, and what it is a extremely 4-star looking unit. Not gonna lie. Also, blue means she's color sharing with Gilliam, doesn't
Leave
it?
it to me.
Okay, interesting. And we're getting a rearmed hero on this banner as well. It's Sacred Stone, so who's it gonna be? That is Tana. Interesting.
Archers make short work of
Tana.
Pegasus Knights. It pays to know your foe.
On the banner with 2 Pegasus Knights, she is bragging about how easy it is to shoot down Pegasus Knights with a bow. It pays to pay attention to your surroundings, Tana. Otherwise, you're going to make some people very annoyed. That being said, it seems like Tana has been pretty popular recently with the devs. There's been Young Tana, there's been Harmonic Tana, Tana and Peony, and now this, Arcane Tana. I wish Larachelle got this kind of treatment. But no, we can take another Tana, always. She is an arcane unit, so she does, of course, bring with her an arcane bow. Let's see what it does. The Arcane Nustland accelerates special trigger, cooldown count -1, effective against flying foes. It is a bow. If you initiates combat or is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants attack speed, defense, res +5 to unit during combat. The unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack, reduces damage from foes' first attack during combat by 30%, and grants bonus to units attack during combat equal to 12 minus foes' max special cooldown count value times 2, minimum 4. Okay, so honestly, out of all the arcane weapons, this one seems like it might sort of be the weakest. The arcane sword gave you full follow-up control and some other nice things. The arcane lance had some interesting special control going on. The arcane axe was very defensive. The arcane red tome had big instant specials as a possibility. This bow, I mean, it's slaying, it's decent stats. The main difference it's got going for it, though, is it's just kind of 30% damage reduction and a bit of extra attack on top of that. And when I say a bit of extra attack, it's going to be somewhere between 10 and 4, right? 10 is against the best possible case, a foe using 2 cooldown special with slaying to get a 1 cooldown special. Obviously, if you're running into something like a Gale Force unit or a unit with Ether, something like that, then they're getting the full special cooldown count value decreased to your attack bonus, so they're hitting you with that sad 4 extra attack. Yeah, compared to the other arcane weapons, this one just kind of feels like a baseline 2023 weapon rather than having any specific special niche on top of that. Which I guess kind of makes sense, seeing as bows, unlike the other unit classes where you've got a few specific roles that they fall into, a lot of bows are just kind of there. And also the fast bows at the moment do already kind of have a weapon that they want to be running in the form of Whitecap bow. But still, yeah, not a particularly exciting arcane bow. Definitely still better than most of the inheritable bows out there, though. But even then, it's like, does it necessarily match up to the tankiness you're getting from something like Spendthrift? Well, it probably does because of that damage reduction, right? But bows honestly have a lot tougher competition for inheritable weapons than some of the other classes do. Now, let's keep going, because what she does have, though, Deadeye as the special. Very important special in the modern day. It was important back when Shailen first gave it to us. It's still important today, because this is your bow access to shredding damage reduction, and given how every unit on this banner, except for the 4-star, has been walking up with a whole bunch of damage reduction, you can tell how important that is, right? In the A slot, attack speed unity, still a pretty difficult skill to get your hands on. I personally have been really wanting attack speed unity fodder for quite a while now. Like Duo Marth, for instance, really wants attack speed unity. A lot of your Godsword type units, if they're not running a finish skill, then attack speed unity is the second best bet, especially because of if you're running, for instance, Legendary Robin support, now that he's out, unity effects stack very, very well. Like, ridiculously well, because, again, unity is offsetting debuffs by applying double the debuff as a buff. Obviously, like, normally that's offset by the debuff to add up to a total of 1 times the debuff but as a buff. But if you've got 2 unity effects, or a unity and a grand strategy, well, you're taking the debuff and adding quadruple it in buffs. So remove the debuff and you're still left with triple the debuff's stats as a buff. And say you're going to, I don't know, a unit like Fallen Ike, who can go triple unity with the grand strategy effect, that's 5 times your debuffs in buffs. That's kind of silly. So yeah, any unit that wants attack and speed, and not only like just wants attack and speed, but if you're wanting to throw buffs around, the Thread of Panic means that a unity skill is, well, neutralizing that threat completely, more or less. This is just a really handy skill to have. I think, honestly, top 2 attack and speed skills in the game. In the B slot, she has a PRF B slot. Good to see that the days of arcane units lacking PRF seems to have been put on pause for the moment. Soaring Wings enables Canto 1. Unit can move to a space within 2 spaces of any ally within 2 spaces. Very reminiscent of what young Tana had, but a little more devastating because this is on a ranged unit. At the start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, inflict speed defense minus X on foe during combat, where X is equal to 4, plus number of spaces from start position to end position of whoever initiates combat, max 8. So, yeah, her young version's big old teleport radius and a sort of mini clash effect seems very, very useful. And in the C slot, oh hello, Guidance 4. Infantry and armored allies within 2 spaces can move to a space within 2 spaces of a unit. Ooh boy. Grants attack speed +3 to infantry and armored allies within 2 spaces of a unit during combat, and also, if those allies' speed is greater than foe's speed, neutralizes effects that prevent those allies' follow-up attacks during combat. Okay, Guidance just got a massive buff. Was Guidance always just infantry and armored? I think I'm getting confused with like aerobatics, because I think aerobatics is infantry, armored, cavalry. Guidance might just be infantry and armored. But yeah, old Guidance was already pretty handy for just mobility. Flyers always had been the mobility class. This one, though, is essentially turning her into an Ash for your infantry and armored allies. It's turning her into an Ash for your infantry armored allies, and then it has a whole bunch more. Because it's also doing a drive, attack, and speed to those units, and a drive half NFU to those units. Add that all together, and Guidance 4 is a great skill to put on, well, to begin with, Tana herself, but also on any flying anchor for your team. Any flying unit at all, really. You can slap them on the ground, put a bunch of, infantry armored allies around them, and because Tana can teleport a big way with her soaring wings, and then they can teleport, because if she teleports to a space within 2 spaces of them, she's within 2 spaces of them, so they can teleport to a space within 2 spaces of her. There is the potential for some frankly ridiculous laddering around here. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful set of skills, and yeah, the support that Guidance 4 provides, very, very handy. And again, as I've said before, this doesn't have to be on Tana necessarily. This is an inheritable skill. And speaking of inheritable skills, this is a very well-built arcane unit for fodder. Like, the bow itself is a little awkward, but the way the skills are laid out means you should be able to get the bow, Deadeye, Unity, and Guidance 4 in one inherit if you're going onto another flying bow unit. And there are some pretty good flying bow units out there who would kind of like all 4 of those skills. Legendary Claude, for instance. Although Legendary Claude probably wants to keep his built-in bow, but you get the idea. There's some potential here, is what I'm saying. So yeah, kind of low on the bow itself, but as a unit and as fodder, this Arcane Tana is really something. Damage reduction saving her there, and big Deadeye, 202 damage. Story chapter, are we gonna see a unit here? No, we're not. So I'll go and check the Twitter post, I guess. Vanessa is the 4-star, as expected. And in the meantime, they're going to remind us of... That's some very inefficient inheritance there, Faye. Don't think I didn't see that. But yeah, they're reminding us of the very handy fact that arcane heroes are great for being able to fodder and merge them. The Tempest the Grand Hero Battle unit, because right, it is a new Heroes banner. The Grand Hero Battle unit is Leon's dad. Cool, interested to see what they do with him. Short Fort's finally on the banner. Gilliam is cool. Rearmed Tana I'm probably going to try and pick up. Not for the bow, actually, just because I really want to have access to attack speed unity on a few more units, and Guidance 4 also seems like just a huge, huge pickup. That's it from me. Let me guys know what you think about the new Arcane weapon, about the units. Do you like the Sacred Stones? Were you expecting Engage? And I will see you all next time. Penros out.